Hey everybody, Diagnostic Derek here. I've got a 2011 Volvo XC60. It's in for a couple of complaints. They're complaining that the AC sometimes isn't blowing cold. I've got the refrigerant recovery machine hooked up, pulling the system down, see how much refrigerant is in it right now. They're also complaining about a check engine light. They said the car stalled on them about 3 days ago. One time, it hasn't happened since, but the check engine light is still on. So while the AC machine's doing its thing, I was going to go ahead and pull the codes, see what we had. But in the meantime, while I was hooking the AC machine up, I was looking around, as you should always be doing, and I did find something interesting, so we'll show you that. So I found this on the air intake tube, this resonator, muffler, whatever you want to call it, fallen off. It looks like somebody has tried to glue this before. So that is definitely past the mass airflow sensor. The mass airflow sensor is over here. So I'm going to bet that we're probably going to find some lean codes. And I'm not sure if this would cause a stalling condition, but it definitely could set some lean codes. So let's go pull the codes and see if maybe we have a P0171 code set. I've got the OBD generic codes pulled up on the scanner here. P0171 and a P0174, system lean bank 1, system lean bank 2. So we got a pretty good idea of what's causing that. Let's go pull our fuel trims up and see if we can plug that hole in the intake and make the fuel trims correct. I've got the fuel trims pulled up on the screen here. And we can see our fuel trims are very high. Long-term trims are at almost 40%. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a piece of masking tape and cover this hole in the intake tube and watch and see if those fuel trims get back down close to zero. So our fuel trims did drop some. Short term went to -10 for a minute. Now the long terms are starting to come down a little. And it looks like we've pretty well leveled out here. Going to be at around 32-33% total trim, so there's something else causing this lean condition besides just the pirate air leak that we found when we were hooking up the AC machine. So we're gonna have to dig a little deeper on this. So after the last time I shut the camera off, I was had the car running, had the fuel trims up, and I was just trying a few things, check the vacuum on the oil dipstick tube to make sure we didn't have an oil trap that was failed, causing the fuel trims to be high. After a few minutes, I noticed that the fuel trims had started to correct. The short-term trims were down to like -25. The long-term were still up around +25. So I cleared the codes, restarted the car. Same sort of deal, had high long terms and really low negative short terms, and it was still setting lean codes. So what I've decided to do here is I wanted to reset the fuel trim adaptations and see if that would get our fuel trim straightened out. The snap-on scanner wouldn't do that, so I've switched over here. I've got my Autel scanner out, and we're going to go up here to reset the engine adaptations and go ahead and make sure we got our ignition turned on. We do. Click OK. And go ahead and click start. Operation finished. So that should have reset our adaptations. Now we'll go over to live data. And actually I don't actually want to do this. I want to back out and go over to the generic OBD to look at the fuel trims that way. And I'm actually going to switch back to my snap-on scanner just because I like the graphing display better on it. So I'm going to shut the camera off, switch scanners back, and we'll take a look, see what our fuel trims are doing now. Got the snap-on scanner hooked back up, and as we can see, our fuel trims are looking pretty good at this point. We've still got that masking tape blocking off the hole in the intake tube. So basically we're going to have to replace that intake tube. It looks like somebody's already tried to glue that back together once, and obviously it didn't hold up, so probably the best thing to do is going to be to replace that entire intake tube. And we'll take this car on a test drive next. We'll keep an eye on these fuel trims, make sure they stay low. We are getting a little bit of short-term correction, but we're not shooting straight up to plus 30, plus 35 like we were before. So this looks like a good test. We've blocked off the pirate air leak, and we have reset our fuel trims and verified that we're now showing good fuel trims. Just giving you guys a quick look at what I did with the masking tape here. I just wrapped it around the tube and kind of pressed down on it firmly, made sure that we got a good tight seal around that hole. Obviously this is not a fix, this is a test. You know, the resonator here fell off, and it's got some looks like some glue on it where somebody tried to glue it back together at one point already. Obviously that didn't hold up, so we're gonna have to get this customer a new intake tube. So we're out on a test drive now, just taking a short drive. Gonna keep an eye on these fuel trims, make sure they stay down close to 0 or single digits. You know, we just want to see reasonable fuel trims here. In case you were wondering, the AC does seem to be working pretty well now. It was about 0.35 pounds low, so I went ahead and topped off the refrigerant charge on it. We'll let her know that it was a little low and have her bring it back to us if it starts acting up again, see if maybe we've got a leak or maybe another problem. She did say that was an intermittent issue, so there may be something else going on, but for the time being it feels pretty good. We've got the system topped off, so we'll let her have it back and see how it does. So far so good on the fuel trims. At a cruise here, the short-term fuel trims are intermittently, you know, going up and down, which is pretty normal, but they're staying reasonable. Looks like the highest they've gone is about 12.5, and that was just for a second. That could be some sort of monitor test or something like that running, I'm not sure. They just jumped up there for a second, came right back down. So I'd say we're looking pretty good on our diagnosis of our lean codes. We've found the problem, we've got it taped off right now, and with the hole in the intake tube taped off, we're seeing good fuel trims. It's a little odd that the fuel trims didn't want to self-correct. We had to manually go in and reset those fuel trims. Most of the time when you find the problem and plug that leak, they'll go ahead and self-correct really quickly. On this one, we actually had to go in with the scan tool and manually reset the ECM adaptations, but you know, that's the way it goes sometimes. We had another short spike on the short terms there, shot up to 11 point something for just a split second, but I'm not worried about that. That's pretty normal as long as it stays reasonable and doesn't, you know, start climbing and just keep going on up there. Those little short spikes, there's another one, those little short spikes aren't going to set any codes, so I think we're going to call this one good. We'll get her a new intake tube ordered from Volvo, and we'll head on back to the shop right now and finish up everything, get the courtesy inspection done, check the fluids, tires, all that sort of stuff, and we'll give this customer a call and let them know how much the intake tube's going to cost them. So it turns out that a replacement intake tube from Volvo is going to cost a little over $400. So basically, you know, the lady that brought it in says the car belongs to her mother. She's an older woman, doesn't drive very much, and she wants us to just do the best we can to try to put this thing back together. So I've got my 2-part epoxy, and I'm going to do the best I can. Told her that, you know, there was no guarantee of how long it would last, but hopefully it'll hold up, you know, at least for a while. Keep the check engine light out. So we'll do what we can do and hope for the best. here's what our repair looks like. It's not pretty, but hopefully it'll hold up at least for a while. We'll go ahead and put this back on the car. Before we park this thing outside and tell the service writer that they can give it back to the customer, just take one more quick look at the fuel trims, make sure they're still good. They are, look good. Total trim is about 2% on both banks, so looks like we've got this problem taken care of, at least for now, as long as that epoxy holds up. This job was a little weird just because of the fuel trims not wanting to self-correct, having to go in and manually reset them. That's pretty uncommon, but it does happen, so just be aware of that. If you've got a fuel trim problem and you think you've corrected the problem, but your fuel trims are still kind of wacky, go ahead and just reset those fuel trims back to 0 manually inside the ECM and see if they go back to where they were in the fault range, or if they stay close to 0. We reset those fuel trims, they stayed close to 0, they're still close to 0, so we're going to go ahead and call this one fixed. I understand the owner of the car not wanting to spend the amount of money that Volvo wanted to charge for that intake tube, so I can't really blame them there. I just hope that the epoxy holds up and that thing doesn't come apart again anytime soon. So we'll call this one done, give it back to the customer, and we'll see it again the next time it breaks.